Hey guys, I'm Anthony Smith. This is Conservative Fodder. We're going to go and do some commentary on the debate. I'm not sure how much of it I'm actually going to be able to show for legal reasons. We tapped into Newsy's feed. They do a lot of online resources for getting their feed out there. Anyways, let's see how it goes. Keep in mind this is Trump and Biden, years 2020. Here we go.
Which is serving as the health security advisor to the commission for all 4 debates. As a precaution, both campaigns have agreed that candidates will not shake hands at the beginning of tonight's
Now they're going over the COVID strategy. Pretty interesting that they're still beating the drum on that, huh? When we all know that wasn't near as bad as it was advertised to be.
Trump and the Democratic nominee, Vice President Biden.
Man, he never looked more presidential, huh?
Gentlemen, a lot of people have been waiting for this night, so let's get going. Our first subject is the Supreme Court. President Trump, you nominated Amy Coney Barrett over the weekend to succeed the late Ruth Bader
As is his constitutional right to do so.
You say the Constitution is clear about your obligation and the Senate's to consider a nominee to the court. Vice President Biden, you say that this is an effort by the president and Republicans to jam through an appointment.
Except Obama went and appointed one. Same circumstance. He simply just had a Republican House to go and stop the nomination.
A Justice Barrett would take the court. President Trump, in this first segment, you go first. 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chris. I will tell you very simply, we won the election. Elections have consequences.
There you go.
We have the White House, and we have a phenomenal nominee, respected by all, top academic.
Yeah, and I can't believe they're going after her for being a wife and a mother and a Catholic on top of it. I guess they forgot that Kennedy was a Catholic, and I'm not sure what they're looking for. Maybe a spinster, if it's going to be female. Pretty odd.
Election itself. I have a lot of time after the election, as you know. So I think that she will be outstanding. She's going to be as good as anybody that has served on that court. We really feel that. We have a professor at Notre Dame, highly respected by all, said she's the single greatest student he's ever had. He's been a professor for a long time at a great school. And we won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her. And very few people knowingly would say otherwise. And by the way, the Democrats, they wouldn't even think about not doing it. If they had, the only difference is they try and do it faster. There's no way they would give it up. They had Merrick Garland.
And he's absolutely right.
The problem is they didn't have the election, so they were stopped. And probably that would happen in reverse also. Definitely would happen in reverse. So we won the election, and we have the right to do it, Chris.
President Trump, thank you. Same question to you, Vice President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, thank you for doing this, and looking forward to this, Mr. President.
Thank you,
Jim. The American people have a right to have a say in who the Supreme Court nominee is, and that say occurs when they vote for a United States senators and when they vote for the President of the United States. They're not going to get that chance now because we're in the middle of an election already. The election has already started. Tens of thousands of people have already voted. And so the thing that should happen is we should wait. We should wait and see what the outcome of this
Yeah,
election
already
is.
voted because of the mail-in ballots that they pushed.
People get to express their view is by who they elect as president and who they elect as vice president. Now, what's at stake here is the president's made it clear he wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. He's been running on that, he ran on that, and he's been governing on that. He's in the
Yeah,
Supreme
because it's
Court
bad
right now
policy.
trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which will strip 20 million people from having insurance, health insurance now, if it goes into court, and the justice, and I have nothing. I'm not opposed to the justice. She seems like a very fine person, But she's written before she went on the bench, which is her right, that she thinks that the Affordable Care Act is not constitutional.
Because it's not constitutional. You're legislating insurance. I mean, give me a break, guys. I mean, of course it's not constitutional. You're legislating a service to be required.
More money because
mean, think about
she has a
that.
pre-existing condition of pregnancy. They were able to charge a woman more for the same exact procedure a man gets. And that
Wait, did he just say men
in
get
fact,
pregnant?
that's the Affordable Care Act. And there's 100 million people who have pre-existing conditions, and they'll be taken away as well. Those pre-existing conditions, the insurance companies are going to love this. And so it's just not appropriate to do this before.
Yeah, but if you don't have a pre-existing condition rule in there, that means that somebody can literally wait until they get sick and then get insurance. That doesn't make any sense. That'll lead to bankrupt insurance companies. It's insane.
Concerned, the people already had their say. Okay, Justice Ginsburg said very powerfully, very strongly, at some point, 10 years ago or so, she said a president and the Senate is elected for a period of time, but a president's elected for 4 years. We're not elected for 3 years. I'm not elected for 3 years. So we have the Senate, we have a president.
It's elected to the next
During that period of time, we have an opening. I'm not elected for 3 years. I'm elected for 4 years.
The
And the
election's
100
already
million people,
started.
Joe, the 100 million people.
And notice that Joe keeps on interrupting him.
The bigger problem that you have
Odd that
is
Trump
that you're going to
gave him a
extend
courtesy that
180
isn't being
million
allowed
people
back.
with their private health care that they're very
That's
happy
simply
with.
not true.
Well, you're certainly going to socialist. You're going to socialist medicine.
And he's right. It is socialist medicine.
Open discussion.
Open discussion.
Open discussion. Yes, I agree. Go ahead, Vice President.
Number one, he knows that what I proposed. What I proposed is that we expand Obamacare and we increase it. We do not wipe any. And one of the big debates we had with 23.
He decided to do Joe Biden did an agreement with Sanders that basically outlined the view of going towards a socialist style government, including health care. So this is absolutely no surprise.
Your party doesn't say your party wants to go socialist.
And the party wants to go socialist.
And they're going to dominate you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now. The platform of the Democratic
according to
Party
Harris.
is what I, in fact.
No, Kamala Harris is the Democrat Party.
Now here's the deal. The deal is that it's going to wipe out pre-existing conditions. And by the way, the 200 million, the 200,000.
Yeah, stumbling over his words again.
His watch. How many of those have survived? Well,
And he's going to die on his watch due to an illness that was brought over from China.
forward if you strike down
And imagine how many more deaths it would have been had he not went and stopped travel from China as early as he did. I mean, come on, guys.
talk about
And if you were here, it wouldn't be 200, it would be 2 million people because you were very late on the draw. You didn't
Yep.
want me to ban China, which
There
was
you go.
heavily infected. You didn't want me to ban
Heavily infected.
which was heavily infected. You would have been much later, Joe.
Mr.
Much
President,
later.
Mr.
You're
President,
talking about 2 million people.
You're not
President, as a moderator, we are going to talk about COVID in the next segment, but go ahead.
Let me finish. The point is that the president also is opposed to Roe v. Wade. That's on the ballot as well in the court. And so that's also at stake right now. And so the election is all
You don't know it's on the ballot. Why is it on the ballot?
Because
Why is it on the ballot?
Yeah, this is the judiciary not making a law about it. It has to go into the judiciary first.
You don't know her view on Roe v. Wade.
I
You don't know
don't
her
know.
view.
Well, all right. Let's talk. We got a lot to unpack here, gentlemen. We got a lot of time. So, on health care, and then we'll come back to Roe v. Wade.
All right.
Mr. President, the Supreme Court will hear a case a week after the election in which the Trump administration, along with 18 state attorneys general, are seeking to overturn
That's right.
Obamacare, to end Obamacare. You have
As
said
they
the
should.
last-
Because they want to give good health care.
If I may ask my
Right.
question, sir.
Good health care.
Over the last 4 years, you have promised to repeal and replace Obamacare, but you have never in these 4 years come up with a plan, a comprehensive plan
Yes,
to
I have.
replace Obamacare.
Of course I have.
Well,
I
I'll give
got
you
rid of the
when I
individual
finish, I'm going to
mandate.
give you an
Excuse me,
opportunity.
I got rid of the individual mandate, which was a
That
big
is not a
chunk of
comprehensive
That
plan.
is absolutely a big thing. That was the
Yeah, it
worst
is. It's
part.
absolutely a big thing.
Chris,
You're
that was
debating
the
him,
worst
not
part
me.
of Obama.
Let me ask my
Well,
question.
I'll ask Joe.
I
The
know.
individual mandate was the most unpopular
Mr. Vice
aspect of
Mr.
Obamacare. I got
President,
rid of it.
I'd like
And
you
we
to-
will protect
Mr.
people with
President, I'm the
pre-existing
moderator of this
conditions.
debate, and I would like you to let me ask my question, and then you can answer your
Go ahead.
question. You, in the course of these 4 years, have never come up with a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare, and just this last Thursday, you signed a largely symbolic executive order to protect people with pre-existing conditions 5 days before this debate. So my question, sir, is what is the Trump healthcare plan?
Well,
See, and
first of all, I guess
I absolutely disagree with that. The pre-existing conditions should not even be in there. As much as I understand that that hurts families and it can hurt individuals that are ill,
urge to do because you're going against big
that
pharma.
that leaves you the opportunity just to run the medical establishment into the ground. And you got to remember, this is the medical establishment that's now come up with a cure for COVID in record time, and is literally running the world medicine.
So I give you an example. Insulin. It was destroying families, destroying people because I'm getting it for so cheap. It's like water. You want to know the truth? So cheap. Take a look at all of the drugs that what we're doing, prescription drug prices. We're going to allow our governors now to go to other countries to buy drugs because
When in
they
fact-
pay just a tiny
As I
fraction.
say,
of
this
what
is
we do.
open discussion.
No,
Let
but
me
this
ask
is
you
what
about-
it-
let me-
this is
Yeah,
what we do.
you know, realistically, if they just made it so that you could go across state lines to go and pick insurance, it would solve most of those problems.
That you would like to add a public option to Obamacare, and
Yes.
the argument that he makes and other Republicans make is that that is going to end private insurance.
It is
and
not.
will, if I can ask you the question, it will
Not what
end.
your party says, by the way.
It will end private insurance and create a government takeover of healthcare.
It does not. It's only for those people who are so poor they qualify for Medicaid. They can get that free in most states, except governors who want to deny people who are
Don't
poor
they already do that?
Medicaid. Anyone who qualifies for Medicare would, Medicaid would automatically be enrolled in the public option. The vast majority of the American people would still not be in that option. Number one.
Joe, you
Number
agreed
two.
with Bernie
Number-
Sanders,
I-
the
I-
far left, on the manifesto,
When
we
you-
call it.
with
And that
manifest-
gives you socialized medicine.
And that's what I was talking about earlier, that agreement between the two.
The fact of the matter is, I beat Bernie Sanders.
Not by
I'm-
much.
I beat him a whole hell of a lot. I'm
Not
here,
by
I'm here
much.
standing facing you. buddy.
Pocahontas would have left 2
I
days
tell
early.
you,
You would have lost every primary.
All he knows how to
on
do
Super
is hurt-
Tuesday. You got
Look,
very lucky.
here's the deal. I got very lucky. I'm going to get very lucky tonight as well. And tonight I'm going to make
what?
sure because
what?
here's the deal. Here's the deal. The fact is,
I love how Trump's poking him a little bit. You know, I think he's trying to get him to break down and lose his temper. I mean, he's already stumbling over his words. Can't be too far from that.
Last thing you class, first thing you
I want to make
Mr.
sure.
President, can you let him finish, sir?
No, he doesn't know how to do that. He has,
You'd be
you know,
surprised.
you pick
You'd be surprised.
the
Go ahead,
wrong
Joe.
guy,
Go,
the
go,
wrong
Joe,
night at
go.
the wrong time.
Listen, you agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders.
He is. He's got to be pushing him for it.
There is no manifesto. Number
Please let
one.
him speak, Mr.
Number two.
You just lost the left.
Number two.
You just lost the left. You agreed with Bernie Sanders on a plan. That's
Folks,
absolutely
folks,
agreed
do you
to.
have any
And under that
idea
thing
what
that's
this clown's
socialized, they
doing?
call it
Mr.
Medicare.
You have any
President.
Socialized medicine.
Mr.
Well, I
President.
tell you what, he is not for any help for people needing health care because
Bernie?
because he in fact already has cost 10 million people their health care that they had from their employers because of his recession. Number one. Number two,
yeah.
there are
Yeah, a
20
recession that's
million
only
people
been really pushed in Democrat-run
wants to take it
states.
away. He won't ever look you in the eye and say that's what he wants to do. Take it away.
No, I want to give
Number
you better
three.
health care at a much lower price
And
because
by the way, he
Obamacare
doesn't
is
know
no good.
how. He doesn't know how
I've
to do
already
that.
fixed it.
He has never
I've
offered
already
a
fixed
plan.
it to an extent.
He has never
Obamacare,
done a
as you
single
might
thing.
know, but probably don't.
Gentlemen, you realize
is
if you're
no
both
good,
speaking at the
It's
same
no good,
time,
and it's too expensive.
let the president, go ahead, sir.
Obamacare is no good. We made it better, and I had a choice to make very early on. We took away the individual mandate. We guarantee pre-existing conditions, but took away the individual mandate. Listen, this is the way it is, and that destroyed. That they shouldn't even call it Obamacare. Then I had a choice to make. Do I let my people run it really well, or badly. If I run it badly, they'll probably blame him, but they'll blame me. But more importantly, I want to help people. Okay? I said, you got to run it so well.
That's what
And I just had a meeting with them. They said the problem is no matter how well you run Obamacare, it's a disaster. It's too expensive.
I got you.
Premiums
I
are
got
too
it.
high,
That's
and it
what
doesn't
these
work.
people- that's
So
what these people
we
say.
do want to get rid of it.
It's
Chris,
an
we
open-
want to get rid of it.
I
and
understand
give
it, sir,
something
but I have to
cheaper
give
and-
If you guys see me looking over, I'm looking over the monitor to make sure we're still recording here. So
Good.
He has no plan for health care.
Of course we do.
Please.
He sends out wishful thinking. He has executive orders that have no power. He hasn't lowered drug costs for anybody. He's been promising the health care.
yeah, unlike your guy who Obama did more executive orders than any other president in history.
He does
mean,
not have a plan. He
hey.
doesn't have a plan. And the fact is, this man doesn't know what he's talking about.
All right,
He's
I
against-
have one final question for you,
Sure.
Mr. Vice President. If Senate Republicans, we were talking originally about the Supreme Court here, if Senate Republicans go ahead and confirm Justice Barrett, there has been talk about ending the filibuster or even packing the court, adding to the 9 justices there. You call this a distraction by the president, but in fact it wasn't brought up by the president. It was brought up by some of your Democratic colleagues.
Those Democrats appear to be poor losers, huh?
My question to you is, you have refused in the past to talk about it. Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take on that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote. You're in. Vote
They did. That's why Trump is in office.
No, how strongly you feel it. Vote now.
You're gonna pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let
Yeah,
people know.
Trump's trying to push him. He's not answering the question. Are you going to pack the court?
Answer that
Because the
You
question
put a
is,
lot of
the
new
question
Supreme Court
is,
justices,
the
radical
question-
left.
Will you
Who
shut
is
up,
on,
man?
listen, who is on your list?
This is-
See if we can get him to lose his temper.
This is so
He's going to pack the
unprecedented.
court.
We have
I'm
ended,
not going to give a list.
we have ended this segment. We're going to move on to the second segment.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it? Keep yapping,
The
man.
people understand, Jeff.
They should.
47 years, you've done nothing. They understand.
All right.
There you go.
The second subject.
When they talk about draining the swamp, that's who they're talking about. 47
Be
years.
serious about it. We have had more than 7 million cases of coronavirus in the United States, and more than 200,000 people have died. Even after we produce a vaccine, experts say that it could be months or even years before we come back to anything approaching normal. My question for both of you is, based on what you have said and done so far, and what you have said you would do starting in 2021, why should the American people trust you more than your opponent to deal with this public health crisis going forward? In this case, the question goes to you first, sir. 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Good luck. 200,000 days. As you said, over 7 million infected in the United States. We, in fact, have 5%, 4% of the world's population, 20% of the deaths.
5%? 4%?
3,000 people a day are contracting COVID. In addition to that, about between 750 and 1,000 people a day are dying. When he was
Would love to
presented
fact
by
check
Trump, he
these
said,
because those
"It
numbers
is
seem like
what
they're a
it
little
is.
conflated, don't they?
What is what it is because you are who you are. That's why it is. The president has no plan. He hasn't laid out anything. He knew all the way back in February how serious this
Which is why he shut down
He knew
travel.
It was a deadly disease. What did he do? He's on tape as acknowledging he knew it. He said he didn't tell us or give people a warning of it because he didn't want to panic the American
Right, but while he didn't do that from a public standpoint, he was in the background and shutting things down and making preparations. I mean, I think that was the right call. Why would you want to go and make the panic so much more worse? I mean, does anybody else remember going into the stores? I mean, heck, a lot of these stores still don't have things again. I mean, out of toilet paper, out of food stores. I was getting ready to go up to Alaska during all that and having a hard time trying to find stuff to go and ship up there. I mean, why would you want to make that any earlier? So frustrating. And the worst part is that there are liberal Democrats, most of them are younger than me, that believe it hook, line, and sinker. It's really, really frustrating.
In order to be able to go out and get people the help they need to keep their businesses open schools that cost a lot of money. you should get out of your bunker and get out of the sand trap and get in your golf course. And go
Yeah, which is he's the one that's out there and actually having meetings without masks. He's did 8 last week.
You have 2 minutes, sir.
If we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000, and one person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have never happened. They stopped it from going in, but it was China's fault. And by the way, when you talk about numbers, you don't know how many people died.
Sorry
in
about
China.
that, guys.
You don't know how many people died in
My
Russia.
screen went over
People died
blank there
in
to make sure we were still
Exactly. Give you
recording.
a straight count, just so you understand. But if you look at what we've done, I closed it, and you said he's xenophobic. He's a racist, and he's xenophobic because you didn't think I should have closed our country. Wait a minute.
It's his 2 minutes.
You didn't think we should have closed our country because you thought it was terrible. You wouldn't have closed it for another 2 months. By my doing it early.
Yeah, does anybody else remember Pelosi in Chinatown saying, "Oh, it's open, it's fine. No, you don't need to worry about coming down here."
Trump did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, and dancing down there in Chinatown.
Go take a look. The governor said I did a phenomenal job. Most of them said that. In fact, people that would not be necessarily on my side said that. President Trump did a phenomenal job.
And he did do a phenomenal
We
job.
got the gowns, we got the masks, we made the ventilators. You wouldn't have made ventilators, and now we're weeks away from a vaccine. We're doing therapeutics already. Fewer people are dying when they get sick. Far fewer people are dying. We've done a great job. The only thing I haven't done a good job, and that's because of the fake news. No matter what you say to them, they give you bad press on it. It's just fake news. They give you good press. They give me bad press.
And this is absolutely accurate.
It is, unfortunately. But let me just tell you something. I don't care. I've gotten used to it. But I'll tell you, Joe, you could never have done the job that we did. You don't have it in your blood. You could have never done
You know,
it.
you got to remember the printing press. The Federalist Papers was a bunch of letters written by our founding fathers, Hamilton specifically, and it was all pro the Union. Reasons to hold the Union together was sent off to newspapers, and then it was published from there. You got to think of a news media that was actually pro the Union, pro the government. Well, not pro the government, excuse me, pro the country.
Look,
Odd how far they've
I
fallen.
get up this morning and had an empty chair at the kitchen table because someone died of COVID. How many of you were in a situation where you lost your mom or dad and you couldn't even speak to them? You had a nurse holding a phone up. So you
Head of your Operation Warp Speed, Dr.
I
Sally.
disagree with him. No, I disagree with both of them. And he didn't say that. He said it could be there, but it could also be much sooner. I had him in my office 2 days ago.
He talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available. Just
He
like
said
Dr.
it's a
Redfield.
possibility that we'll have the answer before November 1st. It could also be
Talking about
after
when it's
that.
generally available.
It-
not
well, we're going to deliver it right away. We have the military all set up logistically. They're all set up. We have our military that delivers soldiers, and they can do 200,000 a day. They're going to be
This is
delivering
the
them.
same man
It's
who
all
told
set
you
up.
by Easter this would be gone away. By the warm weather it'd be gone. Miraculous, like a miracle.
Because it should have been. The Democrat Party has allowed this thing to go around in order to go and demonize Trump.
I would have said
And
sarcastic.
so here's the deal. This man is talking about a vaccine. Every serious company is talking about maybe having a vaccine
Serious company?
by the end of the year. But the distribution of that vaccine will not occur until sometime beginning or the middle of next year to get it out, if we get the vaccine. And pray God we will. Pray God we will.
Mr. Vice President, I want to pick up
You'll have the vaccine
I
soon.
want to pick up on this question, though. You say the public can trust the scientists, but they can't trust President Trump. In fact, you said that again tonight. Your running mate, Senator Harris, goes further, saying that public health experts, quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed. Given the fact that polls already show that people are concerned about the vaccine and are reluctant to take it, are you and your running mate, Senator Harris, contributing to that fear?
Yes.
More than
The answer is
question you
yes.
have to ask him. You pointed out he puts pressure and disagrees with his own scientists.
But you're saying
Everybody
you can't,
knows.
Senator
And-
Harris is saying
no.
you can't trust the
No,
scientists.
well, no, you can trust the scientists.
It,
She didn't say that.
all it has to do with is trying to go and change the election.
Yes.
They're trying to demonize him.
That's what he's going to try to do, but there's
And
millions
sadly,
of
they're
scientists,
succeeding.
Thousands of scientists out there, like here at this great hospital, that don't work for him. Their job doesn't depend on him. That's not. They're the people. And by the way,
Spoke to the
and
scientists that are in
by
charge.
the way,
Isn't he describing the
you believe
the Green New Deal side of things, the The environmentalists all work for it. They're getting their grants from them, so they're giving them the answers that they want.
He still hasn't even acknowledged that he knew this was happening, knew how dangerous it was going to be back in February, and he didn't even tell you. He's on record as saying it. He panicked, or he just looked at the stock market. One of the two, because guess what? A lot of people died, and a lot more.
So is it the stock market? Did he cause the recession, or did he not act soon enough?
The word smart. So you said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college. You didn't go to Delaware State. You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me. Don't ever use that word.
Oh, give me a break.
Because you know what? There's nothing smart about you, Joe. 47 years you've done nothing.
Let's have this debate.
And if you would have had, let me just tell you something, Joe.
No,
If you would have had the charge of what I was put through, I had to close the greatest economy in the history of our country. And by the way, now it's being built again.
See,
And
we're
it's
We're going
going
to get
up
to the
fast.
economy in the next segment, sir.
Okay.
It's going up fast.
Okay.
Look forward to it.
When it comes to how the virus has been handled so far, the two of you have taken very different approaches, and this is going to affect how the virus is handled going forward by whichever of you ends up becoming the next president. I want to quickly go through several of those. Reopenings. Vice President Biden, you have been much more reluctant than President Trump about reopening the economy and schools.
And then they blame him for the
He
recession.
doesn't have a plan. If I were running, I know what the plan is. You've got to provide these businesses the ability to have the money to be able to reopen with the PPE as well as with the sanitation they need.
Well, taking more money from the government, I assume.
Pelosi.
Well, he's just shush for a minute.
Tell it to
Yeah,
Nancy
no.
Pelosi.
And
And Schumer,
by the
Brian
way,
Chuck.
Nancy Pelosi and Schumer, they have a plan. He won't even
Really?
meet
What's
with-
that plan?
The Republicans won't meet with the Senate. And he sits on his golf course. And, well, I mean, literally, think about it.
You probably
All right,
play
think
more than
about
I do, Joe.
Think about what? He didn't say anything.
Well, he wants to shut down this country. And I want to keep it open.
There you go.
We did a great thing by
admitted
shutting
he
it
shut
down.
it down.
Wait a
And
minute.
it should be
Shut
opened.
you down for a second, Joe, just for 1 second. He wants to shut down the country. We just went through it. We had to because we didn't know anything about the disease. Now we found that elderly people with heart problems and diabetes and different problems are very, very vulnerable. We learned a lot. Young children aren't. Even younger people aren't. We've learned a lot. But he wants to shut it down. More people will be hurt by continuing. If you look at Pennsylvania, if you look at certain states that have been shut down, they have Democrat governors all. One of the reasons
Yep.
they're shut down is because they want to keep it shut down until after the election.
Yep, there you go.
November 3rd.
That's absolutely accurate. Absolutely accurate.
But those states are not doing well that are shut down
Which is
right
now.
now.
Respond to that.
What's
President
the shutdown
Trump, you
of the
have
country?
begun to increasingly question the effectiveness of masks as a disease preventer. And in fact, recently you have cited the issue of waiters touching their masks and touching plates.
Yeah, you know, the funny part about masks is it doesn't say anywhere in the Constitution, thou shalt wear masks. It doesn't say anywhere in the Bible, thou shalt wear masks.
I think I need it.
You know, the one where it says that they should wear masks is the Quran. I wonder if there's any link to that.
Distancing and all of the things you have to, but
Pretty odd. We're here in Washington State. We got Jay Inslee's going and pushing the mask mandate. I mean, he's pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. You know, we're now what, 7 months into a 2-week shutdown. We've got businesses that still can't open. We've got restaurants that still can't open. We've got bars that still can't open. We've got masks required to go everywhere possible. It's insanity. You know, you're standing 6 feet apart from each other and still required to wear masks. In fact, we were in that family. We were walking through a park the other day, a big hiking trail, and there was a family that had stopped to go and take pictures. A real scenic overview,
Dr. Fauci said
and they wanted to go and take a picture of it. And the wife there goes, well, let me go and take off my mask so you can get a better picture without it. And I kind of make a comment of, you know, you're in the middle of nowhere. You're not going to go get a virus here. And the guy, who obviously has to be a Biden supporter, goes, well, except for all the people around. Okay, well, you're standing like 20 feet from me, which is the next closest person, on a trail in the middle of nowhere. And you're wearing a mask while on a hike. I hate to tell you guys, but if you're on a hike, you probably don't have COVID.
people want to hear what I have to say. I mean,
or at the very least not contagious. They've actually got statistics that say people that aren't showing signs that have tested positive for COVID don't have the capacity to go in and get the contagion out to other people.
Difference according to the
So
experts, and we do them outside. We have tremendous crowds, as you see. I mean, and literally on 24 hours notice. And Joe does the circles and has 3 people someplace.
Okay.
By the way, did you see
Yes, sir.
one of the last rallies he had? And a reporter came up to him to ask him a question. He said, no, stand back. Put on your mask. Put on a mask. Have you been tested? I'm way far away from those other people. That's what he said. I'm going to be okay. He's not worried about you. He's not worried about the people out there breathing in one another.
We've had no negative effect.
No negative effect.
We've had no negative effect, and we've had 35, 40,000
All right,
people
you
at
wanna
any of these rallies.
Just
Yes.
quickly finish up because I want to.
yeah, once again, the contagion level of COVID is greatly overexaggerated.
Handle the social distancing and people wearing masks. Basically, encourage them not to.
All right.
And he's a fool on this.
If you could get the crowds, you would have done the same thing. But you can't. Nobody cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the
Nobody cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the economy?
Yes.
The economy is, I think it's fair to say, recovering faster than expected from the shutdown.
Thank God, by the way.
In the second quarter, the unemployment rate fell to 8.4% last month. The Federal Reserve says the hit to growth, which is going to be there, is not going to be nearly as big as they had expected. President Trump, you say we are in a V-shaped recovery. Vice President Biden, you say it's more of a K-shape. What difference does that mean to the American people in terms of the economy? President Trump, in this segment, you go first.
So we built the greatest economy in history. We closed it down because of the China plague. When the plague came in, we closed it down, which was very hard psychologically to do. He didn't think we should close it down, and he was wrong. And again, 2 million people would be dead now instead of still 204,000 people is too much. One person is too much. Should have never happened from China. But what happened is we closed it down, and now we're reopening, and we're doing record business. We had 10.4 million people in a 4-month period that we've put back into the workforce. That's a record the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. And
he's right.
Down.
It is.
He will shut it down again. He will destroy this country. You know, a lot of people between drugs and alcohol.
Actually, I don't think he'll shut it down. I think they'd open it wide open and go, see, Trump closed it. Yeah, it's.
Where they have these tough shutdowns, and I'm telling you, it's because they don't want to open it. One of them came out last week. You saw that. Oh, we're going to open up on November 9th. Why November 9th? Because it's after the election.
Yeah, they're doing the same thing with the schools, by the way. Oh, we'll consider opening it in middle of November.
People know what to do.
Well, you mean in the middle of flu season when we all know that illnesses are more likely to come about? We're going to reopen.
North Carolina, when you look at
Yeah, I'm thinking it has nothing to do with an illness.
Pennsylvania, Michigan, and a couple of others, you got to open these states up. It's not fair. You're talking about almost it's like being in prison. And you look at what's going on with divorce, look at what's going on with alcoholism and drugs. It's a very, very sad thing. And he'll close down the whole country. This guy will close down the whole country and destroy our country. Our country is coming back incredibly well, setting records as it does it. We don't need somebody to come in and say, let's shut it down.
All right, your 2 minutes, sir. We're now moved to you. As I said, posing the question, the president says it's a V-shaped recovery. You say it's a K-shaped recovery. What's the difference?
The difference is millionaires and billionaires like him in the middle of the COVID crisis have done very well. Billionaires have made another $300 billion because of his profligate tax.
What billionaire made $300 billion?
And he only focused on the market. But you folks at home, you folks living in Scranton and Claymont and all the small towns and working class towns in America, how well are you doing? This guy paid a total of $750 in taxes.
Yeah, doing pretty good.
Sir, it's just I understand. You've agreed to the 2 minutes, so please let him have it.
Do I get my time back? The fact is that he has, in fact, worked on this in a way that he's going to be the first president of the United States to leave office having fewer jobs in his administration than when he became president. Fewer jobs than when he became president.
In the administration, what's wrong with that? He's
Secondly,
needing less people.
have lost their jobs.
Less people sucking off the federal tit.
Those people who have been saving our lives, those people who have been out there dying, people who've been putting themselves in the way to make sure that we could all try to make it. And the idea that he is insisting that we go forward and open when you have.
Yeah, and if he's talking about the medical establishment, these are the same medical establishment that he wants to hurt with the Obamacare Act. And if he's talking about the first responders in the form of police officers, he's part of the party that's saying that we should defund them. So
Fix the COVID crisis.
the inability to go and hold a stance on something is unbelievable. It's flip-flopping all over from where they stand.
Because it costs a lot of money to open them safely. You know, they were going to give, his administration was going to give the teachers and school students masks. And then they decided, no, couldn't do that because it's not a national emergency. Not a national emergency.
They can't give out masks. Could you imagine giving a first grade class a bunch of masks, a bunch of 6-year-old a bunch of masks? Be a freaking nightmare.
You ought to get on the job and take care of the needs.
Or you can just reopen
So we can't
and pretend like it never happened, because frankly it shouldn't have.
Respond to that.
Well, you both have 2 minutes, sir.
Excuse me, he made a statement.
So did you.
People want their schools. No, people want their schools open. They don't want to be shut down. They don't want their state shut down. They want their restaurants. I look at New York. It's so sad what's happening in New York. It's almost like a ghost town, and I'm not sure it can ever recover what they've done in New York. People want their places open. They want to get back to their lives.
People
They'll
want
be
to be
careful,
safe.
but they want their schools open.
People want
I'm
to
the
be
one that
safe.
brought back football. By the way, I brought back Big Ten football. It was me, and I'm very happy to do it. And
All right,
people of Ohio are very proud of me. And you know
We're
how
going
I
to get
found
back,
out? When he took the
gentlemen,
phony
we're going to
ad.
get to your economic plans going forward in a moment. But first, Mr. President, as you well know, there's a new report that in 2016, the year you were elected president, and 2017, your first year as president, that you paid $750 a year in federal income tax each of those years.
Good. That means he's taking advantage of it. He probably has an S corp and is putting most of his income through that. What's wrong with that?
In federal income taxes each of those 2 years.
I paid millions of dollars in taxes, millions.
Yeah, through the
of dollars
company.
of income tax. And let me just tell you, there was a story in one of the papers. I
what's
paid,
your tax?
I
Yeah,
paid
every employee that he had, any B&O taxes that he had, any R&D taxes that he had, any inventory taxes that he had.
See it. You know, if you want to do, go to the Board of Elections. There's a 118-page or so report that says everything I have, every bank I have, I'm totally under leveraged because the assets are extremely good, and we have a very, I built a
Sir, I'm
great
asking you a
company.
specific question, which
But
is.
let me tell you.
I understand all of that.
Release your
I
tax
understand all of
return.
that.
But let me-
No, Mr. President,
Go ahead.
I'm asking you a question. Will you tell us how much you paid in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017?
Millions of dollars.
You paid millions of dollars?
Millions of dollars.
So
yes.
not 750.
Millions of dollars, and you'll get to see it.
I-
And you'll get to see
When?
it. But let
In
me just
July?
tell you, Chris, let me just tell you something, that it was the tax laws. I don't want to pay tax. Before I came here, I was a private developer. I was a private business people. Like every other private person, unless they're stupid, they go through the laws, and that's what it is. He passed a tax bill that gave us all these privileges for depreciation and for tax credits. We build a building and we get tax credits, like the hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue. You get a massive, which, by the way, was given to me by the Obama administration, if you can believe that. Now, the man got fired
no.
right after that happened, but
Vice
that's
President Biden, you want to respond?
Yeah, I do want to respond. Look, the tax code that made him, put him in a position that he pays less tax than a school teacher on the money a school teacher makes, is because of him he says he's smart because he can take advantage of the tax code.
Well, yeah, and he runs a company and a business. So there's, as he was talking about, there's losses, depreciation on investments.
Make sure that we invest in the people who, in fact, need that.
It's insane that this is even a concern. I shouldn't even be having to defend him. I mean, this is truly insanity.
Because you are
Why would you do it over
because you
Vice
are
President?
president screwing things up.
You were a senator, and
You're
by
the
way,
worst
you were a
president
vice-
America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
let me just tell you, Joe. I've done more in 47 months. I've done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe. We've done things that you never even thought of doing,
Okay.
including
Gentlemen.
fixing the broken military that you gave me, including taking care of
We're
your
talking,
vets.
Mr. President, we're talking about the economy. I'd like to ask you about your plans going forward, because, Mr. Vice President, your economic plan, if you were to be elected president, focuses a lot on big government, big taxes, big spending. I want to focus first on the taxes. You propose more than $4 trillion over a decade in new taxes on individuals making more than $400,000 a year and on corporations. President Trump says that that kind of an increase in taxes is going to hurt the economy as it's just...
And it is going to hurt the economy. I mean, Trump got the economy to perk back up after Obama by getting rid of a lot of these Obama taxes.
My economic plan
It's pretty simple.
7 million more jobs than his in 4 years, number one. And number two, it would
He's talking about 4 years. He's had 47.
in economic growth.
47 years, including 8 as a vice president.
We're going to make this federal government spend $600 billion.
There's nothing that this guy is going to do that's going to go and be a benefit to the American people.
And the like. And under my proposal, we're going to make sure that every penny of that has to be made by a company.
But respectfully, sir, I'm talking about taxes, not spending.
Well, by the way, I'm going to eliminate.
To them, it's the same thing, taxes and spending.
The corporate tax, 28%. It shouldn't be 21%. You have 19.
Why? So we can go and... All that's going to do is get corporations to go and leave the frickin' country, you moron.
Making billions of dollars.
You cost them more money, they're going to boogie.
Because you, in fact, passed that. That was
Right,
your
I got
tax
it.
proposal.
I got it done, and you know what
And
happened?
you got it done.
Our economy boomed
And
like it's never boomed.
Yeah, and boomed like it never has before.
Let me, Mr. President, let me pick up on that. You would continue your free market approach, lower taxes, more deregulation, correct?
Not lower taxes for American people.
Let me,
Excuse me.
but in Obama's, you talk about the economy booming, it turns out that in Obama's final 3 years as president, more jobs were created, 1.5 million more jobs than in the first 3 years of your presidency.
They had the slowest recovery economic recovery since 1929. It was the slowest recovery. Also, they took over something that was down here. All you had to do is turn on the lights and you
Yeah, it's coming through a recession.
Slowest economic recovery.
Or from
since
recession, excuse me.
1929. Let me tell you about the stock market. When the stock market goes up, that means jobs. It also means 401ks. If you got in, if you ever became president with your ideas, you want to terminate my taxes, I'll tell you what, you'll lose half of the companies that have poured in here will leave, and plenty
Half
of
of the
companies that are
companies-
already here, they'll leave for
hardly
other
any companies
places.
have
They will
poured in
leave,
here.
and you will have a
I've-
depression, the
I've-
likes
I've-
of which you've never seen.
Look,
Mr.
we
Vice President.
inherited the worst recession short of a depression in American history. I was asked to bring it back. We were able to have an economic recovery that created the jobs you're talking about. We handed him a booming economy. He blew it.
It wasn't
He blew
booming.
it. He
It
blew it.
wasn't booming.
No, it wasn't
It
booming.
was the weakest
Well, sir,
recovery
is it
since
fair to, wait, is it
1929.
fair to say he blew it when, in
When
fact, there was,
COVID came.
when there was record low unemployment
Yeah.
before COVID?
There you go.
Because what he did, even before COVID, manufacturing went in the hole. Manufacturing went in the hole.
Excuse
number
me.
one.
Except he made us oil dependent. That's a big thing, guys. Oil dependency.
No.
Chris.
And once again, lowest unemployment for the African American population, lowest unemployment, lower than we've ever seen. I mean, at least in my lifetime, probably, I'd imagine since the reflex back from World War II when we became the world's machine shop. I mean, it's unbelievable that they're trying to go and pull that wool over people's eyes.
Year they've ever had.
That is not
Many
true.
car companies came in from Germany, from Japan, went to Michigan, went to
They're
Ohio,
not having
and
it.
they didn't come in.
Yes, they did. They reopened new plants there.
And so you take a look at what he's actually done. He's done very little. His trade deals are the same way. He talks about these great trade deals. You know, he talks about the art of the deal. China's
He's done huge trade deals, and on top of it, has actually brought real peace in the Middle East without having to go in and increase and do a larger influx of the military.
And no wonder your
I mean,
son goes in.
really, they should be giving this guy a Nobel Peace Prize.
Takes out billions of dollars to manage. He makes millions of dollars. And also, while we're at it, why is it, just out of curiosity, the mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million. What did he do to deserve it? What did he do with Burisma
None
to
of that
deserve $183,000?
You asked
That
the
is
question
true.
and answer.
None of that is true.
Oh, really?
Totally,
But no,
$3.5 million?
Mr. President,
It's
Mr.
totally-
President, please.
totally
ask the question.
discredited. Totally discredited. And by the way,
Really discredited by who?
$3.5 million, Joe?
Mr. Vice,
He got
Mr.
$3.5
President,
million.
That is not true.
Oh, really?
Mr.
Oh.
President,
But, Ms.
it's an open discussion, please.
No,
It's a fact.
Well,
There's no-
It is a
raise the
fact.
issue, let the
It's been
Vice
totally
President answer.
discredited.
Did
There was a
Burisma pay him
report.
$183,000 a month with no experience in
Now he's
anything?
stumbling.
Did nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he did.
Mr. President,
He knew nothing about infrastructure or power distribution. Oh, he just got hired. And in fact, Joe Biden bragged about how he got that job and got that politician thrown out who was trying to go and investigate his son.
By everyone as discredited. Matter of fact, even the people who
President, please stop.
testified under oath.
So let me
Under
ask you
oath.
this, Joe.
Under
No,
oath.
go ahead, Mr. I'm listening to
Even
you.
people under.
He got $3.5
He
million from
testified.
Moscow.
He testified under oath in his administration. Said, "I did my job and I did it very well.
Oh,
I did
really?
it
I'd like to know
honorably."
who they are.
Well, I'll give you the list of
I'll
the
fire
people who
them.
testified.
No, go ahead, sir.
Sure, you've already fired most of them because they did a good
Because
job.
Some people don't
Well,
do a good
here's
job. With you,
Go ahead,
they
you
say
get
what
the,
to
wait a
do.
minute, you get the final word, Mr.
Well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown. Excuse me. This,
Now you got to go and watch Biden and go think about if he's having a hard time with Trump. Imagine going up with somebody like Putin.
here's the deal.
The guy has a hard time staying on track, has a hard time keeping the thought, and he's doing the best he can. And actually, all things considered, he's doing pretty good. But you got to put him up to somebody that actually wishes us ill will. And on top of it, then he's got family members that have taken money from, the Russian Federation. I mean, this whole circumstance. I mean, if you vote for Biden, you got to be an absolute fool. I mean, I hope you guys are seeing what I'm seeing here. I mean, this is insanity, truly insanity.
We're moving on.
It didn't take that.
Vice President, no.
Can I be honest? It's a very important
Try to be
question.
honest.
He stood up.
No,
He stood up.
the answer to
and
the
he
question is
threatened
no.
Ukraine.
No, sir.
With $1 billion, if you
That
get rid
is
of
You know what? You're
absolutely not
stop.
true.
Take doing it.
You're going to
Not
have
take.
True.
gentlemen. I hate to raise my voice,
He's
but I
on
see it
tape.
seems to be. Why should I be different than the two of you? So here's the deal.
Good point.
We have
And actually, the moderator's doing a damn good job considering he's trying to hold these guys together. I
you
mean,
each are going to have 2 uninterrupted moments. In those 2 uninterrupted minutes, Mr. President, you can say anything you want. I'm going to ask a question about race, but if you want to answer about something else, go ahead. But I think that the country would be better served if we allowed both people to speak with fewer interruptions. I'm appealing to you, sir, to do that.
Well, and him too.
Well, frankly, you've been doing more
Oh,
interrupting.
that's
than
all
he
right,
has.
but he does plenty.
Well, less than, sir, less
There's
than,
plenty.
no, less than you have. Let's please continue on. The issue of race. Vice President Biden, you say that President Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very fine people on both sides, was what directly led you to launch this run for president.
Oh, yeah, sure.
President Trump, you have often said that you believe you have done more for black Americans than
he
any
did. That's why black unemployment was so far down.
of Abraham Lincoln. My question for the 2 of you is why should voters trust you rather than your opponent to deal with the race issues facing this country over the next 4 years? Vice President Biden, you go first.
It's about equity and equality. It's about decency. It's about the Constitution. And we have never walked away from trying to
It's
require
about the Constitution.
equity for everyone, equality for the whole of America. But we've never accomplished it. But we've never walked away from it like he has done. It is
If we want to talk about equality, you got to remember
Close your eyes.
how many white lives died during the Civil War to go and free the blacks. It was a white conservative, white Republican president that brought out the Emancipation Proclamation, but yet they want to just forget that. It's a revisionist history of this country.
Ever said anything like that?
It is
Now,
sir.
second point I'd make to you is that when Floyd was killed, when Mr. Floyd was killed, there was a peaceful protest in front of the White House. What did he do? He came out of his bunker, had the military use tear gas on him so he could walk across to a church and hold up a Bible. And then what happened after that? The bishop of that very church said that it was a disgrace. The general who was with him said all he ever wants to do is divide people, not unite people at all. This is a president who has used everything as a dog whistle. to try to generate racist hatred, racist division. This is a man who, in fact, you talk about helping African Americans. 1 in 1,000 African Americans has been killed because of the coronavirus. And if he doesn't do something quickly, by the end of the year, 1 in 500 will have been killed. 1 in 500 African Americans. This man.
I'm not sure what this has anything to do with racism.
African Americans. This man cares at all. This man's done.
So you're saying the virus is racist?
The fact is that you have to look at what he talks about. You have to look at what he did. And what he did has been disastrous. What he did
is allowed the African American community, made it so the African American community had better paying jobs and more jobs than they ever have in the history of this country.
1994, where you call them super predators, African Americans are super predators, and they've never forgotten it. They've never forgotten it, Joe.
No, sir, it's his 2 minutes.
So you did that, and they call you a super predator, and I'm letting people out of jail now that you have treated the
And Kamala Harris has put them in prison and then bragged about it.
Black community about as bad as anybody in this country. You did the 1990, and that's why if you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time because they saw what you did. You call them super predators, and you've called them worse than that because you look back at your testimony over the years, you've called them a lot worse than that as far as the church is concerned and as far as the generals are concerned. We just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals, total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group in the United States. I have Florida.
As they
I have
should.
Texas, I have Ohio. I have Portland. The sheriff just came out today and he said, I support President Trump. I don't think you have any law enforcement. You can't even say the word law enforcement because if you say those words, you're going to lose all of your radical left supporters. And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they called us in Portland, we would put out that fire in a half an hour, but they won't do it because they're run by radical left Democrats. If you look at Chicago, if you look at any place you want to look, Seattle.
And this is absolutely true. It's all used as a form of division.
They put up their hands and we got back Seattle. Minneapolis, we got it back, Joe, because we believe in law and order, but you don't. The top 10 cities and just about the top 40 cities are
a lot of this is starting to look more and more as like Shays Rebellion. I mean, you got a pissed off group of people. They're waiting to go and do this up until the election, and then I think, depending on where the election goes, they're going to go and stoke that fire. I mean, if Donald Trump, by the grace of God, wins, they're going to stoke that fire and make it as hot as they can. I mean, they're going to try to bring us to the line of civil war. But the screwy part is that if Biden wins, it'll all disappear. The only thing we'll simply lose our rights. What was the quote? I'd rather die in battle than be handcuffed in peace or be imprisoned in peace. I mean, it's rather than, one of the issues is that conservative Republicans tend to be non-violent. We tend to go and trust our law enforcement. We tend to trust our politicians, as odd as that is to believe. We need to stand up if this knucklehead gets and manages to become president of the United States. Now I'm not saying we go and burn down cities like Black Lives Matter has done, but I'm saying that we need to go and stand up, be unified, actually go and make a point that we're not going to let the Constitution be eroded to the level that they're trying to erode it. There's been lots of lives lost in the history of this country to go and defend that document, and we're just going to let it slip through our fingers.
Never appropriate. Peaceful protest is. Violence is never appropriate.
All right,
Then why are you guys stoking the flames of it?
They run through the middle of town and burn down your stores and kill people all over the place.
That
You
is
say
not
peaceful
peaceful.
protest. No, it's
I'm not
not, but
asking-
you say it is.
President Trump, I'd like to continue with the issue of race. I promise we're going to get to the issue of law and order in a moment. This month, your administration directed federal agencies to end racial sensitivity training that addresses white privilege or critical race theory. Why did you?
Because they're teaching white man bad.
End racial sensitivity training, and do you believe that there is systemic racism in this country, sir?
I ended it because it's racist. I ended it because a lot of people were complaining that they were asked to do things that were absolutely insane, that it was a radical revolution that was taking place in our military, in our schools, all over the place, and you know it.
Yeah, very much in the schools. They're trying to push it as far and as hard as they can. You know, I'll tell you the funny thing is that with all these closures, and you got parents that are now actually having to be more involved in their kids' education, they're seeing some of these things that are being pushed down the kids' throats, and has been pushed down our kids' throats for years. You know, there is no law, no legislation that's directly standing in the way from any other race to go and not be economically viable. In fact, if you look at it, the more you go and make an excuse for them, and the more that you make it easier, well, not easier, the more that you go and make legislation and law that goes and doesn't allow people to stand on their 2 feet, the farther down they go. You know, it's one of the reasons, in fact, the welfare racket is one of the reasons why you have such a high prevalence of non-married women in the black population, because the more and more children they have, and as long as they're single, they get more and more money, more and more benefits. It is the worst thing that they could have possibly done for a population, because then you get a huge quantity of black children being raised with no father in the household. You know, it's a statistic that the likelihood for success in this country is to be born to a mother and a father, and be born in this country. I mean, that is the recipe for success in this country.
Faith. They look down on people who are a different color. In fact, we're all Americans. The only way we're going to bring this country together is bring everybody together. There's nothing we cannot do.
Agreed. Then stop making separation in them.
We can take this on and we can defeat.
They want separate. They want
Biden administration. There was tremendous division. There was hatred. You look at Ferguson. You go to very many places. Look at Oakland. Look what happened in Oakland. Look what happened in Baltimore. Look what happened. Frankly, it was more violent than what I'm even seeing now. But the reason is that the Democrats that run these cities don't want to talk like you about law and order. And you still haven't mentioned. Are you in favor?
He still has not said law and order.
Favor of law, you follow it.
Still hasn't said it.
Law and order with justice, where people get treated fairly. And the fact of the matter is, violent crime went down 17%, 15% in our administration. It's gone up on his watch.
Yeah, it's gone up because of them.
Every record in the
Mr. President, you're going to be very happy, because we're now going to talk about law and order.
places we had trouble were Democratic-run cities.
That's exactly
And this is
right.
absolutely
There's
accurate.
a dramatic increase in homicides in America this summer particularly, and you often blame that on Democratic mayors and
And it is Democratic mayor's fault. That, and you let a large proportion of people go hungry, you're going to see it get worse and worse. You take their jobs away, give them nothing else to do. You go and give them welfare, so all they have to do is go and protest for a living. Yeah, you're going to see huge quantities of people. It's insane.
In Chicago, where 53 people were shot and 8 died shot. If you look at New York, where it's going up like nobody's ever seen anything.
Because they defunded the police.
150, 200% crime. It is crazy what's going on. And he doesn't want to say law and order because he can't, because he'll lose his radical left supporters. And once he does that, it's over with. But if he ever got to run this country and they ran it the way he would want to run it, we would have our suburbs would be gone. By the way, our suburbs would be gone, and you would see problems like you've never
wouldn't
seen.
know a suburb unless he took a wrong turn.
Oh, I know suburbs.
He would not.
So much
I was
better.
raised.
Go ahead, wait a minute.
And now he's going to do the whole, I was raised in
This is
something,
not
something.
1950. All these dog whistles on racism don't work anymore. Suburbs are by and large integrated. There's many people today driving their kids to soccer practice and or to black and white and Hispanic in the same car as there have been any time in the past. What really is a threat to the suburbs and their safety is his failure.
So he admits that he's been as good as he can to the races. Said now you've got all these people that are,
That's why the suburbs are in
more together, more intertwined than ever before.
And in the joint recommendation that came from the Biden-Bernie Sanders task force, you talked about, quote, reimagining policing. First of all, what does reimagining policing mean, and do you support?
It means
Let me, if I might
I mean,
finish.
you guys need to read Rules for Radicals, because this is one of the recipes for that, is trying to go and make division in the population and then overwhelming the institution with overspending, so making more welfare and then trying to do a divergence along the lines of racial. They're going straight down the playbook.
As a matter of fact, local police, the only one defunding in his budget.
Or economic strata, that's another big one. They've done that for ever and ever. I mean, if you think about Nazi Germany, the Jews were for the most part the well-to-do. They had more money than most of them. They had lots of Jewish business owners. It was one of the reasons why they divide them down the way. Same thing with socialist Russia. They went after the capitalists. They used that as the example of the enemy due to financial reasons. Now we've done the same thing with the one percenters, saying that they're evil, they're bad. It's all in that same playbook. And now this is just it by another means. It's the degradation of our society, and that's what they want.
Think, we have time.
We don't have time to do
No,
anything.
think
All right.
about it. Name one law enforcement group that came out and
I think,
supported
gentlemen,
it.
I think I'm going to take back the
There
moderator's
aren't. I don't
role,
think there are any.
and I want to get to another subject, which is the issue of protests in many cities that have turned violent. In Portland, Oregon, especially, we had more than 100 straight days of protests, which I think you would agree. You talk about peaceful protests. Many of those turned into riots. Mr. Vice President, you say that people who commit crimes should be
A lot of this are anarchist group, and some of these people are actually paid groups. They've got either backers by a caliphate, or they've got backers by dark state individuals trying to go and throw the election or help push us over to a socialist society. Even Black Lives Matter, the sign that they're using is the raised fist, like you see from socialist Russia. It's absolute crazy making.
I made it clear in my public statements that the violence should be prosecuted.
And just to be clear, Black Lives Matter as a principle I'm totally for, but as an organization, absolutely can't stand by it.
In Portland and in Oregon to call and bring in the National Guard and knock off 100 days of riots.
They can, in fact, take care of it if he just stay out of the way. Look here.
Oh, really?
Here.
Oh, really?
Here's the
But
thing.
I sent in the U.S. Marshals to get the killer of a young man in the middle of the street. They shot him, and for 3 days,
President Trump,
Portland wouldn't do anything. I had to send in the U.S. Marshals, and they took care of business.
Go ahead, sir.
And by the way, his own former spokesperson said, riots and chaos and violence help his cause. That's what this is all about.
No, it helps their cause, not
I
Trump's.
think Kellyanne Conway.
I don't think she said.
She said that. And so here's the point.
Go
The
ahead.
point is that's what he keeps trying to rile everything up. He doesn't want to calm things down.
Right, which is why the news media is the one that's calling violence in the streets as a peaceful protest. You saw it in CNN. They had it running on the lower part about violence in such and such city, and then they quickly disappeared and came back of peaceful protest.
To answer, sir, you have repeatedly criticized.
I have to answer his statement.
You have
His
repeatedly.
statement. Wait,
You have
just
repeatedly.
one
No,
second.
you've been talking
He
back
made
and
a
forth.
statement.
I'm asking you.
I would love to end it.
sir.
I would love to end it.
If you want to switch seats,
We could very quickly.
We can do that, but
I'd send in the National Guard, it would be over. There'd be no problem.
Okay.
But they don't want to accept the National Guard.
You have repeatedly criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing
That's right.
extremist groups. But are you willing?
Keep in mind, Antifa, for a while, when you type it into your search engine, you'd hit go on it and bring up Biden's website. That's why he can't bring it up, and that's why he can't go and say anything bad against him, because he is part and parcel involved.
Sure,
Are you
I'm willing
prepared
to
to
do that.
specifically
But
do it?
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
Agreed.
What are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see peace.
Then do it, sir.
And I don't think this is a Big Ender's Little Pushit. I mean, you go and watch the news media. If you went down it and you go channel to channel, it's all very, very critical of Trump in regards to it.
Stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem.
His
This
own
is a left.
FBI director
This
said,
is a left-wing problem.
white supremacist. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you got
It's an
it.
organization.
That's what his
It's an idea.
His FBI director said.
Well, then you know what? He's
we're
wrong.
done.
The one that he fired.
Moving on to the next. We're
But
moving.
if that hits you over the head, that's not an idea.
Everybody in
Antifa
your
is
administration tells you the truth has a bad idea.
Can I tell you what?
You have no ideas.
Antifa is a dangerous
All right,
radical
gentlemen, we're
group.
now moving on to the Trump
And
and
you ought to be
Biden
careful with
records.
them. They'll overthrow you.
When a president, I'm going to ask a question. When the president seeks a second term, it is generally a referendum on his record. But Vice President Biden, you like to quote one of your dad's sayings, which is, don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative. And in this case, sir, you are the alternative. Looking at both of your records.
Phil, when you leave office, you don't leave any judges. That's like, you just don't do that. They left 128 openings, and if I were a member of his party, because they have a little different philosophy, I'd say if you left us 128 openings, you can't be a good president, you can't be a good vice president. But I want to thank you, because it gives us almost, it'll probably be above that number by the end of this term.
I'm sorry.
300 judges, it's a record.
Looking at both your records, why should voters elect you president as opposed to President Trump? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Under this president, we become weaker, sicker, poorer, more divided, and more violent. When I was vice president, we inherited a recession. I was asked to fix it. I did. We left him a booming economy, and he caused a recession. With regard to being weaker, the fact is that I've gone head to head with Putin and made it clear to him we're not going to take any of his stuff.
And then took money
He's
from him.
Putin's puppy. He still refuses to even say anything to Putin about the bounty on the heads of American soldiers.
Your son got
And-
$3.5 million.
That's right. And by the way,
Mr.
my
President,
son,
wait a minute. Mr. President, your campaign agreed to both sides would get 2-minute answers uninterrupted. Well, your side agreed to it, and why don't you observe what your campaign agreed to as a ground rule, okay, sir?
he never keeps his word. Can you
Because-
add back
No,
He's
I'm
a
not
person
asking.
that's
That was a
not
rhetorical question.
Can you
Go
add
ahead,
back
sir.
30 seconds?
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
you may have.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, thirdly, we're poor. The billionaires have gotten much more wealthy by a tune of over $300 to $400 billion more just since COVID. You in the home, you got less. You're in more trouble than you were before. In terms of being more violent, when we were in office, there were 15% less violence in America than there is today. He's president of the United States.
Yes, but if you went and
It's
looked,
on his watch.
you know,
And we've
4
got
months ago,
more
you'd see those numbers quite the
nation
opposite.
can't stay divided. We can't be this way. And speaking of my son, the way you talk about the military, the way you talk about them being losers and being and just being suckers. My son was in Iraq. He spent a year there. He got the Bronze Star. He got the Conspicuous Service Medal. He was not a loser. He was a patriot, and the people left behind there were heroes.
Really?
And I resent.
Are you talking
like
about Hunter?
hell.
Are you talking about
I'm
Hunter?
talking about my son, Bo Biden. You're
I
talking
don't know.
about.
I don't know, Bo. I know Hunter.
Yeah, you know Bo.
Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not
Yeah,
true.
he lost where he was talking about. He didn't even realize he was talking about which one of his sons he was talking about. It's just it's crazy. He was obviously making comments about Hunter, and he lost where he was going on it.
My son, like a lot of people we know at home, had a drug problem. He's overtaken it. He's fixed it. He's worked on it, and I'm proud of him.
Which
I was given
more power to him.
millions,
All right,
but he wasn't given tens of millions. That is totally.
President Trump, you've already.
It has been tens of millions of dollars.
We've already been through this. I think the American people would rather hear about more substantial
So do I.
subjects. Well, you know, as the moderator, sir, I'm going to make a
No, but when
judgment call
somebody
here.
gets $3.5 million
Okay, right.
from the
Let's
mayor
talk
of
about-
Moscow,
let's talk about
I
it.
think it's
True.
a
Gentlemen,
terrible
That
thing.
report is totally
Why did he-
discredited.
I
Mitt
think,
Romney on that committee said it wasn't worth taxpayers' money. That report, it was written for political reasons.
you know, I'd like to talk about climate change.
So would I.
Okay. The forest fires in the West are raging now. They have burned millions of acres.
Okay, now these forest fires, you got to remember, they went and outlawed not deforestation, excuse me, land clearing. One of the reasons why this happened is without having land clearing, you haven't gotten rid of the debris between the trees. It used to be part of part of the plan. You'd go and clear out all that fallen lumber. Well, that hasn't happened. It's no wonder you're seeing some of the biggest fires. And on top of it, you're having people starting fires from Black Lives Matter.
And what will you do in the next 4 years to confront it?
I want crystal clean water and air. I want beautiful clean air. We have now the lowest carbon. If you look at our numbers right now.
And frankly, these people need to go and look at the periodic table. You go and look at oxygen and nitrogen, and then you take a look at where carbon monoxide and dioxide go and sit on that. It doesn't stay afloat in the atmosphere. It comes back down. That's the first thing. Now, they were talking about ozone depletion. For one, that is easily solved by any sort of electrical storms, goes and recreates its own ozone. Now, if you want to go and talk about the pollution that we've done to the water, I'll agree. We've overpolluted our oceans, but lo and behold, nature finds a way. They've now come up with a bacteria, or have seen a bacteria now on plastics that are floating out in the ocean that has a way to go and disintegrate the plastics. So, Mother Nature is something else. It more has to do with the redistribution of wealth, and it's the whole entire global warming campaign is more about its own religion than anything else. I mean, you look at how blindly people follow into it. It's very much, it's almost borderline a cult.
If you had forest management, good forest management,
there you go.
You wouldn't be getting those goals.
He's right.
In Europe, they have forest cities. They're called forest cities. They maintain their forests. They manage their forests. I was with the head of a major country. It's a forest city. He said, "Sir, we have trees that are far more, they ignite much easier than California. There shouldn't be that problem." I spoke with the governor about it. I'm getting along very well with the governor. But I said, at some point, you can't every year have hundreds of thousands of acres of land just burned to the ground. That's burning down because of a lack of management.
Sir, if you believe in the science of climate change, why have you rolled back the Obama clean power
Because they were
plan,
job killers.
Carbon emissions in power plants? Why have you
And if they really want clean energy, then you go nuclear.
Why have you relaxed fuel economy standards that are going to create more pollution from cars
Well,
and
not
trucks?
really, because what's happening is the car is much less expensive and it's a much safer car, and you're talking about a tiny difference. And then what would happen, because of the cost of the car, you would have at least double and triple the number of cars purchased. We have the old slugs out there that are 10, 12 years old. If you did that, the car would be safer. It would be much cheaper by $3,500.
Well, on top of it, if you go and lower the emissions, along with some of that comes a more reliable car. If you can go and keep it longer, then you're not producing another one. Then you're not using up all the fossil fuels it took to go and build another car.
The car has gotten so expensive because they have computers all over the place for an extra little bit of gasoline. And I'm okay with electric cars too. I think I'm all for electric cars. I've given big incentives for electric cars. But what they've done in California is just crazy.
Vice President Biden, I'd like you to respond to the president's climate change record, but I also want to ask you about a concern. You proposed $2 trillion in green jobs. You talk about new limits, not abolishing, but new limits on fracking, ending the use of fossil fuels to generate electricity by 2035.
And if you do that, you're going to have rolling brownouts. I mean, absolutely everywhere. There won't be enough power in the grid unless you want to go once again to nuclear.
He's absolutely wrong.
Solar panels take more energy to produce a solar panel than you get out of them in 20 years. Same thing with wind generation. The technology just isn't there yet. It's getting closer, but the cost of producing it is well overraised the amount of power that you're getting out of it.
And oil. Nobody's going to build another coal-fired plant in America. No one's going to build another oil-fired plant in America. They're going to move to renewable energy, number one. Number two,
why is that?
We're going to make sure that we are able to take the federal fleet and turn it into a fleet that's run on their electric vehicles.
Which is going to cost us a huge amount of natural resources in the batteries.
100,000 charging stations and all of the highways that we're going to be building in the future. We're going to build an economy that in fact,
And
is going
coincidentally,
to
highways
provide
require
for
oil.
The ability us to take 4 million buildings and make sure that they, in fact, are weatherized in a way that, in fact, they'll emit significantly less gas and oil because the heat will not be going out. There's so many things
Weatherized?
that we can do now to create thousands and thousands of jobs. We can get to net zero in terms of energy production by 2035.
Net zero as far as energy production, so he wants us to create zero
Create
energy?
Millions of good paying jobs, not $15 an hour, but prevailing wage, by having a new infrastructure that in fact is green. And the first
Which
thing
once
I
again
will
goes
do,
back
I
to
will
redistribution of
rejoin
wealth.
The Paris Accord. I will join the Paris Accord because with us out of it, look what's happening. It's all falling apart.
Yeah, they're falling apart, not
Someone
us.
who has no relationship with foreign policy. Brazil.
And
the
oddly, we're the
rainforest
ones that are
is
going and making
down.
new
Right
advancements
down.
in it, and we're the ones that aren't following
Carbon
it.
is absorbed in that
I mean, once again, look at
rainforest
Tesla.
than every bit of carbon that's emitted in the United States. Instead of doing something about that, I would be gathering up and making sure we had the countries of the world coming up with $20 billion. Say, here's $20 billion. Stop tearing down the forest. And if you don't, then you're going to have significant.
Is he talking about giving countries $20 billion so they don't stop deforestation?
Says that you have to balance environmental interests and economic interests, and he's drawn his line.
Well, he hadn't drawn a line. He still, for example, makes sure that he wants to make sure that methane's not a problem. You can now emit more methane without it being a problem. Methane. This is a guy who says that you don't have to have mileage standards for automobiles that exist now. This is a guy who says that the fact that it's all true. And here's the
Talking
deal.
about the Green New Deal, and it's not $2 billion or $20 billion, as you said. It's $100 trillion.
I'm talking about
Where they want to rip down buildings and rebuild the building.
No,
It's the
that is
dumbest,
not-
most
that
ridiculous.
is not-
Where airplanes are out of business,
That's it.
where two-car systems are out, where they
Not
want to
true.
take out the cows too.
Not
That's
true.
not true either, right?
Not
This is
true.
this is a 100
Simply,
trillion.
look,
That's more money than our
that is-
country could make in
that is
100
simply
years if we
not
but
the case.
All right, let me
It will destroy our
because I
country.
actually, wait a minute, sir. I actually have studied your plan, and it includes upgrading 4 million buildings, weatherizing 2 million homes over 4 years, building
So doing it by force, by government legislation. So now they're going to go come into your homes and say that you're not efficient enough, or your business place.
People who support the president would say that sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money and hurt the economy.
It sounds like
It's gonna
socialism
create thousands and millions of jobs, good paying jobs.
But let him finish, sir.
at the cost of businesses.
$100
They-
billion.
The fact is, it's going to create millions of good-paying jobs, and these tax incentives to people for people to weatherize, which he wants to get rid of. It's going to make the economy much safer. Look how much we're paying now to deal with the hurricanes. By the way, he has an answer for hurricanes. He said maybe we should drop a nuclear weapon on them. They may.
I never said that.
That's
at
what
all.
he did say.
You made it up.
And here's the deal.
You make up a
We are going to be in a position where we can create hard, good jobs by making sure the environment is clean and we all are in better shape. We spend billions of dollars now.
Once again, at the cost of the corporations. They're going to go bankrupt corporations in order to go and pull this off.
We're in real trouble. Look what's happened just in the
Oh,
Midwest.
rising seas, give me a break. Have you ever gone and taken a cup
Such
of
as
water, filled it up to the absolute top with ice, and then watch it go and melt? Does the water go and rise, or does it get lower? When you see an iceberg floating, 75% of it's below water. Now you also got to remember, ice is denser. It takes up more of a buoyancy factor than the water does in itself. So when you actually get one of those ice to melt down, it actually goes and lowers the water. So as these icebergs are melting, you're actually getting less amount of displacement for the water that's going back into it. I mean, you got to think about this. This is very easy to prove. It's a well-known fact, but yet they still go and embark on this tree that somehow the oceans are going to raise.
He and his friends made it up, and then they went with it. I never said it.
Okay.
That is
What
not
he
true.
did
Sir,
is he
you're done in
said
this segment.
he called
Mr.
the
Vice-
military
Mr. Vice President,
stupid bastards.
I
And he
did
said
not
it on
say-
tape. He said
Mr.
stupid bastards.
Please,
He
sir,
said it.
stop.
I will
To be fair, he called them stupid bastards after he made a joke.
The president answered his final question.
The final question is, I can't remember which of all was ranting.
I'm having a little trouble myself. But and about the economy and about this question of what it's going to cost.
The economy.
I mean, the Green New Deal and the
Yeah,
idea
he's
of
lost again.
your environmental changes will do.
The Green New Deal will pay for itself as we move forward.
So now he admits
We're
that
not
it's the
gonna
Green New
build
Deal.
plants that
Yeah,
are
he lost what he was doing. Now he's
polluting plants.
just kind of fumbling along it.
Pardon me?
You support?
No, I don't support the Green New Deal.
Then why did you just call it the New
That's
Green
a big
Deal?
statement.
I
That
support
means
the
you just
Biden.
left the radical left.
I support
you
the
don't.
Biden plan that I put forward.
Okay.
The
I mean, like I
Biden
said,
plan,
this guy's
which is
got
different than what he calls
you know, he had quite a few brain aneurysms. I mean, you got a person that's had that kind of damage to their brain, and we're going to let him run for president. I know we consider politicians to be brainless, but he's getting pretty damn close.
How confident should we be that this will be a fair election, and what are you prepared to do?
Shouldn't be confident at all. I mean, look at all the voter fraud that's currently going on. I mean, they've got small municipalities that have had 1,000 people go and vote that weren't even part of the voter rolls.
Will be the legitimate winner.
They're going to have a hell of a time trying to control this
Final
election.
segment, Mr. Vice President, you go first.
Prepared to let people vote. They should go to iwillvote.com. Decide how they're going to vote, when they're going to vote, and what means by which they're going to vote. His own Homeland Security Director, and as well as the FBI Director, says there is no evidence at all that mail-in ballots are a source of being manipulated and cheating. They said that.
Which is why I still get a mail-in voter for my deceased mother, and have for the last 20 years.
Like he does, by the way.
Don't send that in, by the way. It's
It's
a fact.
To Florida, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that those people who want to vote in person are able to vote because enough poll watchers are there to make sure they can socially distance. The polls are open on time, and their polls stay open until the votes are counted. And this is all about trying to dissuade people from voting because he's trying to scare people into thinking that it's not going to be legitimate. Show up and vote. You will determine the outcome of this election.
Yeah,
Vote,
show up and vote.
If you're able to vote
Actually
in
show
your
up.
state,
Don't send in a mail-in ballot because it gives them something that they can go and mess with.
Vote whatever way is the best way for you, because he cannot stop you from being able to determine the outcome of this election. And in terms
And he's
of
not
whether
trying
the
to.
votes are counted and they're all counted, that will be accepted. If I win, that will be accepted. If I lose, it'll be accepted. But by the way, if in fact he says he's not sure what he's going to accept, well, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter, because if we get the votes, it's going to be all over. He's going to go. He can't stay in power. It won't happen. It won't happen. So vote. Just make sure you understand you have it in your control to determine what this country is going to look like the next 4 years. Is it going to change? You're going to get 4 more years of these lies.
Mr. President, 2 minutes.
So when I listened to Joe talking about a transition, there's been no transition from when I won. I won that election. And if you look at crooked Hillary Clinton, if you look at all of the different people, there was no transition because they came after me trying to do a coup. They came
Yep, they
after
did. They
me
tried to
spying
impeach
on
him.
my campaign. They started from the day I won and even before I won. From the day I came down the escalator with our First Lady, they were a disaster. They were a disgrace to our country. And we've caught them. We've caught them all. We've got it all on tape. We've caught them all. And by the way, you gave the idea for the Logan Act against General Flynn. You better take a look at that because we caught you in a sense. And President Obama was sitting in the office. He knew about it too. So don't tell me about a free transition. As far as the ballots are concerned, it's a disaster. A solicited ballot, okay, solicited is okay. You're soliciting, you're asking, they say
Yeah, you're asking for a
send it
ballot.
back. I did that. If you have an unsolicited, they're sending millions of ballots all over the country. There's fraud. They found them in creeks. They found some with the name Trump, just happened to have the name Trump just the other day in a waste paper basket. They're being sent all over the place. They sent 2 in a Democrat area. They sent out 1,000 ballots. Everybody got 2 ballots. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen. The other thing, it's nice on November 3rd, you're watching and you see who won the election. And I think we're going to do well because people are really happy with the job we've done. But you know what? We won't know. We might not know for months because these ballots are going
They're gonna be
all
so
over.
messed
Take a
up.
look
Yep.
at what happened in Manhattan. Take a look at what happened in New Jersey. Take a look at what happened in Virginia and other places. They're not losing 2%, 1%, which, by the way, is too much. An election could be won or lost with that. They're losing 30 and 40%. It's a fraud, and it's a shame. And can you imagine where they say you have to have your ballot in by November 10th? November 10th. That means that's 7 days
After the election.
The election, in theory, should have been announced.
Okay.
We have major states with that.
Sir,
All run by
2 minutes
Democrats.
is 2 minutes.
All run by Democrats. It's
President
a,
Trump,
It's a rigged election.
you're going to be able to continue. You have been charging for months that mail-in balloting is going to be a disaster. You say it's rigged, that it's going to lead to fraud. But in 2018, in the last midterm election, 31 million people voted mail-in voting. That was a quarter, more than a quarter of all the voters that year cast their ballots by mail. Now that millions of mail-in
Yeah, but it's a difference between getting them in the mail without your request rather than asking for yourself to be listed as a mail-in ballot or a absentee ballot.
Look at the ballots, definitely. I don't think I hope we don't need them in terms of the election itself. But for the ballots, I think so. Because what's happening is incredible. I read today, where at least 1% of the ballots for 2016 were invalidated. They take them, we don't like them, we don't like them. They throw them out.
Which, by the way, this is why we have a necessity for the Electoral College. Could you imagine if it was purely a vote off of the winning the popular vote?
Chris, a solicited ballot where you
All this would be a huge issue. I think thank God we still have the Electoral College, because that's at least going to go give some stopgap to this.
They're being sold. They're being dumped in rivers. This is a horrible thing for our country. This is not going to end well. This is not going to end well.
5 states have had mail-in ballots for the last decade or more.
A different kind of mail-in ballot.
Republican states. And you don't have to solicit the ballot. It's sent to you. It's sent to your home. What they're saying is that it has to be a postmark by the time.
You notice that he's got a pen in his hand. I think he's writing himself notes on different things so he doesn't lose track of where he's going. And like if you watch him, they'll say something and he'll write something down so that he can go and look back down at it again, because he can't hold that thought long enough. I mean, this is not somebody we want representing our country in front of other world leaders.
Vice President Biden, the biggest problem, in fact, over the years with mail-in voting has not been fraud historically. It has been that sizable numbers, sometimes hundreds of thousands of ballots are thrown out because they
not counted.
have not been properly filled out, or there is some other irregularity, or they missed the deadline. So the question I have is, are you concerned that the Supreme Court with a Justice Barrett will settle any dispute?
I am concerned that any court would settle this, because here's the deal. When you get a ballot and you fill it out, you're supposed to have an affidavit. If you didn't know, you have someone say that this is me. You should be able to, if in fact you can verify that's you before the ballot is thrown out, that's sufficient to be able to count the ballot, because someone made a mistake and not dotting the correct I. Who they voted for, testify, say who they voted for, say it's you. That is totally legitimate.
All right.
Excuse me, when you have 80 million ballots, Senate and swamping the system, you know it can't be done. You know it can't, and already
All right.
it's been
So now,
fraud.
Mail
It's
service
final-
delivers
gentlemen, in the
185
final
million
question
pieces of mail a day.
in 8 states, we can keep talking.
And lose them
In 8
constantly.
states, election workers are.
I tell you the truth, if UPS was doing it, I'd be a little bit more for it, because they have less of a likelihood to just dump it in the creek.
Ballots, even take them out of the envelopes and flatten them until election day. That means that it's likely, because there's going to be a huge increase in mail-in balloting, that we are not going to know on election night who the winner is, that it could be days, it could be weeks,
Could be months.
until we find out who the new president is. So first for you, sir, finally for the vice president, I hope neither of you will interrupt the other. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm during this extended period, not to engage in any civil unrest, and will you pledge tonight that you will not declare victory until the election has been independently certified? President Trump, you
I'm
go first.
urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully, because that's what has to happen. I am urging them to do it. As you know, today there was a big problem.
Yeah,
In
the
Philadelphia,
civil unrest
they
that
went
could
into
ensue
war
could be
with
tremendous. In
poll
fact,
watchers, a very safe
I hope
way.
everybody goes and stocks up on food, firearms if you're legally able to have them. I mean, this could get bad very, very quickly.
I I am urging my people. I hope it's going to be a fair election.
You know, this
If it's
country
a
is
fair
more
election,
polarized than
I
it's
am
been
100%
literally ever. Once again, I go back to the
see
Civil War and
tens of
Shays Rebellion. I
thousands
mean,
of
it's
ballots being manipulated. I can't go along with that. And I'll tell you why.
we need to go and make sure that
It means you have a fraudulent election.
we need to be able to protect our families, and that includes from a civil standpoint of having firearms to being able to feed them.
They cheat. Hey, they found ballots in a waste paper basket 3 days ago, and they all had the name military ballots. They were military. They all had the name Trump on them.
Vice President
You think
Biden,
that's good?
Vice President Biden, final question for you. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm while the vote is counted, and will you pledge not to declare victory until the election is independently certified?
Yes, and here's the deal. They count the ballots, as you pointed out. Some of these ballots in some states can't even be opened until Election Day. And if there's thousands of ballots, it's going to take time to do it. And by the way, our military, they've been voting by ballots.
Once
for
again,
since
the
end of
difference
Civil War,
between
in effect.
sending an absentee ballot in versus having one just suddenly show up in your mailbox that you never asked for.
It's the same
And then the
process.
question is, then if you go and receive it in your mailbox and you go and vote in person, does that invalidate the one that's in your mailbox, or invalidate the one that you actually went to in person?
That somehow it's
I mean, that's a problem, and unfortunately, that's I think is what's happening.
You had an opportunity
Look
to
at
respond.
Karen.
Go ahead.
They have no idea what
Vice
happened.
President Biden, go ahead.
He has no idea what he's talking about. Here's the deal. The fact is, I will accept it, and he will too. You know why? Because once the winner is declared, after all the ballots are counted, all the votes are counted, that'll be the end of it. That'll be the end of it. And if it's me, in fact, fine. If it's not me, I'll support the outcome, and I'll be a president not just for the Democrats. I'll be a president for Democrats and Republicans. And this guy,
I want to see an honest
Okay,
ballot count.
gentlemen,
We-
you say that's the end of it? This is the
I
end
wanna
of this
see an
debate?
honest ballot count.
We're
And I
going to
think
leave
he
it
does
there.
too.
To be continued as in more debates as we go on. President Trump, Vice President Biden.
Well, there you have it, guys. Once again, pretty darn interesting. It's going to be a heck of an election cycle here. I certainly hope that we as a nation make it through this one with as polarized as we are. Now, as far as a winner on it, frankly, it's hard to say. I'm not sure how the general public's going to go and look at that. I loved that Trump was going after Biden like an attack dog. At the same time, that scares some voters away. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see how everybody looks at it in the morning and see how it affects some of the polls. But definitely going to be an interesting election cycle. Anyways, once again, this is Anthony Smith, a Conservative Fodder, signing out.